Greetings and thanks so much for tuning in. Happy Diwali to all of you. Festive greetings. Thank you so much for joining us on this auspicious day and for giving us a little bit of your time. Now, I'd like to wish you all the best for the new Samvat from our family to yours. We've got a special show lined up for you and a great conversation, I think, in the spirit of the time. So without further ado, let me start by introducing my first guest today. We've got Mrin Agarwal, who is the founder of FinSafe India. Thank you so much for speaking to the Money Show yet again, Mrin, and festive greetings to you as well, and happy Diwali to you and your family. Now, what we decided to speak about was 5 ways to clean up your finances this Diwali, and you've shared a list with me. Let's start with the first one. What have you put on the first point when you're talking about 5 ways to clean up your finances?
Good evening, Alex. Always nice to be here on the show today. And greetings to everybody on the occasion of Diwali. It's so lovely to be doing a show today of all the days. And while, everybody is in the Diwali fervor, I think there are a couple of things that you should consider when you look at your finances. Of course, we're seeing great results from companies. We're seeing great markets. But let's look at some basics. So I think the first thing, if you do want to do a cleanup of your portfolio, just like how you do a cleanup of your house on Diwali, the first thing would be to look at your expenses. And in your expenses, it is not the essential expenses, but it is the non-essential expenses that you need to look at more than anything else. These are all of your fun expenses and stuff like that. So if you do not have a discretionary spending budget, then you need to get one right now. So set out a limit and say, okay, I'm going to spend this much amount on my fun expenses. All of us love impulse purchases. And I think, you should try to account for that somewhere in your budget as well. What I typically do is have a pamper plan for the year, right? Because all of us need some sort of pampering throughout the year. So have a plan for the year and have some money kept aside for it. I mean, what's the point of earning money if you cannot pamper yourself with that money, right? So think about what are these absolute musts that you have, that you need to pamper yourself, and keep some money aside for that. So I think, what I'm really trying to get at is that people tend to generally do it in a very impulsive way without really planning for it. But if you actually look back, you can structure this very well. And I would say maybe 10% of your income you could keep aside for fun expenses, for your pamper expenses on a regular basis.
That's a great idea, and often I think people tend to splurge a little bit during the festive season. So maybe this is something that one can put in place after that, like how you recover after maybe having a little too many jalebis when you step out, right? By having a little less sugar for a few days. But let's get to the second point, and let's talk about debt, because you've listed loans as the second thing that you could possibly clean up. This is actually the time of year when you possibly could get a bonus. Should you use something like that to knock away at loans that you might have?
Oh, absolutely. And why only bonus? People have made great money in stock markets. It's a good time to rebalance. And if you have loans, look at repaying off some of the loans. If you've been investing in all of these trending products like cryptocurrency and P2P, and you've made some good returns out there, good time to get out. Considering that cryptocurrency is not regulated, it's a good time to get out, take some money off and look at repaying off the loan because you've made some great returns out there. Other than that, of course, if you do have many loans, then you do need to make a plan, list down all the loans that you have, try to figure out what will work better, repaying off the loan with the highest interest rate or repaying off the loan which is the highest amount. But essentially, you will have to make a structured repayment plan as well. Try to consolidate. So for example, if you have a personal loan, try to see if you can refinance that through a loan against gold, because that is of course much cheaper, or even loan against a fixed deposit. And one thing that we are seeing a lot today is this huge use of buy now, pay later. Please stay away from it, because what I'm really seeing is that people get quite addicted to this whole buy now, pay later, and they really end up like maybe the first couple of times they would not. They would pay on time, but then it gets habitual and people just end up not repaying back on time, which means again a whole lot of charges, very high interest costs as well. So I think the whole idea to do a cleanup on loans is to really look at consolidating debt, using some windfall gains to pay off some of your loans.
Okay, that's a very fair point. In fact, that's good advice as well. The third point you've listed, Mrin, is insurance. And, you know, I think one positive that we can take from the last couple of years is that people are realizing the importance of both health as well as term. And this is a significant milestone, I think, for a lot of people. But why have you listed insurance as one aspect to clean up?
Actually, the reason that I mentioned it is because most people are very underinsured. And secondly, again, with the markets going up, if you do have investment linked insurance like ULIP, money back, whole life, which typically gives very low returns, it's a good time to look at exiting from it, because right now the fund returns are going to be pretty good. So that's why I've actually mentioned that over there. Again, on the health insurance side, again, you know, there was after the second wave of COVID, there were a lot of inquiries about how can one increase health covers. But what I'm really seeing is that, again, there is this huge dependence only on employer cover, and people are generally very underinsured. So typical insurance in India, health insurance is about 3 lakh rupees is the average. And hence, I think that really needs a big relook, basically. On the health insurance side, it is also important for you to check whether you're not only adequately covered, but if there are too many exclusions in your policies, or if there are too many sublimits in the policies, like sublimit on room rent, or on diagnostics, or whatever else the case might be. So I think a good check on whether you have the right amount of cover, and whether there are enough inclusions and there are very low sublimits and stuff like that, is a good thing to do at this point in time.
No, certainly. And we've spoken about it so much on this show as well, the importance of taking a top up, even if you are covered by a company health insurance scheme. Let's talk about investments. And you've referred to it in a few instances over the course of this conversation as well, Mrin. This is an opportune time to look at your investments as well.
It is an opportune time to look at your investments, because you might need to rebalance. Many times people ask me this question, but they ask it when the markets are down, which is, should I exit my investments? Right now, nobody's really asking me that. But I think it's a good time for you to also look at seeing whether your investments are as per your financial goals, because of course, it's very well known that most people invest in an ad hoc way without really tagging financial goals to their investments. So it's a good time for you to do that. And also, many times what happens is that because somebody might have recommended a particular scheme, you might have gotten into it only to realize later on that this is actually not as per your risk profile. So it's a good time to look at these schemes. And again, because the markets are at a high, it's a good time to look at all of these schemes again to see, one, do you need to rebalance? Are they as per your risk profile or not? And can you actually tag these to any financial goals? The other point that I really want to talk about is certain investment biases, you know, right now, because I do see that earlier we were all talking about FOMO and loss aversion and maybe herd mentality. But right now, what we're seeing is something completely different. And what we're really seeing is this overconfidence bias that nothing can really go wrong. Just looking at information available on social media and taking decisions based on that. So we are seeing a lot of this today, and that is why also it is really important for you to review it in a very, very
Right.
structured manner, to see if this really fits your goals.
Rin, the last point that you've written, I think, is something that all of us can use. You say to plan and organize. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. So very quickly, would you tell us what you mean by that?
Make an inventory of all your financial assets and share it with your family.
Okay. And you've also mentioned, in fact, consolidate accounts. And I think we speak about this a lot on the program as well, Mrin, and we've spoken about it on several conversations. I think both partners in a family should actively involve in the financial planning. That's certainly something that you can change this Diwali. Involve your spouse if she or he is not involved at this juncture. Mrin, as always, it's a great pleasure speaking with you. Compliments of the season, and thanks so much for taking the time.